All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Cassie. Like Terry said, I do transaction coordinating. I've been doing that for about 4, 5-ish years now. I take over for agents once they go under contract, and this is kind of my specialty. So we are going to start off. We're doing contract close, and congratulations, you are under contract. Now, what do you do next? We need to send emails to all of the different parties, emails to the seller or the buyer, depending on who you're representing, to title, to lender, to the opposite agent. So that's what we're going to go through. That's what I do very first thing. I receive everything and I get emails started. All right, so you're going to send your client the information, all documents and information that need to be sent to the buyer/seller that you represent right after closing. This ensures that your client has all the information they need to feel more comfortable with moving forward. So we have a timeline here for the buyer. We have inspections, earnest money's due. We get appraisals, final walkthrough. A ton of stuff happens in between contract acceptance and closing for a buyer. So let's go over with seller. It's a little easier because seller, you're just waiting for the buyer to get all of their due diligence done. So you're just waiting and hoping that nothing comes up with the house, and you answer the buyer agent's questions as needed. Here is a ton of information that you have to send your clients. We have the contract and addenda. Both get that, of course. Buyer broker. You want to send the buyer broker to your buyer just to remind them, hey, we're under, I'm your agent. We have agency. I'm here to help you in whichever way I can, as well as the exclusive right to sell agreement. You want to send that over to your seller just to remind them. You need to send your earnest money information on how you want your buyer to pay it. This is done in one of two different ways. You can either have your client write a check, and that check the client can either deliver that to the office, or the client can give it to you and you have to deliver it to the office. Or the other option is an electronic deposit. There's usually a $15 to $20 fee with that. It makes it really easy though, for your client to not have to rush to the bank, get a cashier's check and whatnot. So, and then you need to send deadlines to both of them, contract highlights to both of them, home inspector information to your buyer, escrow officer information to both of them, all the seller disclosures coming from the seller to your buyer you need to send, and then you need to send your seller just a couple different things. And then you have your additional agency docs, if applicable, meaning that if you haven't already sent them their copy of assigned wire fraud, their copy of the ABA for the buyer, for your own protection document needs to be sent and signed, just to show that they do have knowledge that they do need to complete a home inspection. So let's go ahead and go over to what I do for agents and those email structures. So I introduce myself, and then I have this section here after my introduction of additional paperwork that may be needed. You have a handy dandy tool here to help you out with that, and that's Command. These are all of the required documents needed for a transaction for your buyer. You need a buyer broker, your due diligence, wire fraud, ABA. So that's all the consultation stuff. And then under contract, you have all of this other stuff, and you need to send this form, the For Your Own Protection form, to them to sign. Everything else comes from either the seller or your title company, or the earnest money receipt, which comes from the office. You can download the escrow instructions and upload the real estate purchase contract, but those are the different things that are needed. And so some agents, what they like to do is they just like to get a buyer broker signed, get it done with, or the exclusive right to sell. And then when they go under contract, then they send everything else to their clients to sign. And it kind of just comes in a mass email. And that's what I do, is I send all the information about it. And then I just go, hey, there's some forms I'm going to be sending to you via DocuSign to sign. Other agents like to get everything done in the one consultation, their buyer broker, their due diligence, their ABA, their wire fraud, everything just done, so that the only things that need to be sent after pertain to the contract itself. So I also remind them, hey, I'm sending everything to your title company and lender, so you shouldn't need to send any additional documents over there. I also send, like I explained before, the 2 different ways of sending your earnest money through. And then I just make sure that it gets done. It also depends on the agent I work for. Some agents are like, yeah, I'll just do the earnest stuff. Don't mention it to them. Other agents are like, yes, please text them and remind them and let me know if they're not getting it done and that kind of thing. So it's just your preference. And then we have a contract summary. I send them the purchase price, the earnest money, possession. I also send home warranty if the seller's paying for it or if the buyer's paying for it. But not all contracts contain that. So that's why I don't have it up here on my template right now. The deadlines right here, these are really important deadlines for them to know. And then also just some advice. Put it on your calendar. Whenever I send out my email, whenever I'm filling out this section, the key deadlines, I just go straight to my email, my Gmail calendar, and I just start adding. As you can see, I have different deadlines here for other agents that I work for. So that just helps me overall so that I get it done. Title info, letter info, and then of course their agent info. You just want it there. They probably already have all of your information, but just to have it all in one email is really nice. Oh, and also if you do have any questions, please just speak up. I can't see if anybody's like raising their hand or anything like that. Okay. So the seller email is very, very similar, but it's not going to have anything about earnest money except for maybe the date. Some agents like to let their clients know when the buyer should be turning in their earnest money and having it in the email. And once again, if there's additional documents, you have your handy dandy command with all the different forms that you need here, as well as after under contract, what you need to have uploaded. And then any additional for that contract, of course, goes here under the contract. So once again, purchase money, I like to state the buyer's earnest money, when the buyer will get possession of the home, different deadlines, title, and your agent. So that's just some examples of how to structure an email and how to make sure all that information is there for your clients. For your buyer, there's a huge deadline, the buyer home inspection. And so I'm just going to read this line really quick. For the home inspection information, you can send suggestions through your initial under contract email or a separate email. Some agents do this completely through text and phone call. It's all up to you. So I'm going to pull up an example. I have one agent, Lisa Gonzalez, who likes to make her home inspection email completely separate from her just contract information, because she has this key thing, urgent, please read. It's something that needs to get done really quickly. And it is the buyer's responsibility to get in contact with the home inspector. Some agents do like to, coordinate it with the inspector, like on a group chat or whatever it may be for the client, but the client is responsible for getting this done. So I like to list property address. These are just different tests here. The meth testing, radon, sewer scoping, and mold. Those are just different tests that this agent likes to suggest being done, as well as a home inspection. a general home inspection. So these are all additional. What's really cool about the radon testing is that if you get it done before the buyer due diligence, it is free. So that's an additional $150, $125 that the buyer doesn't have to pay for. I inform them that meth and mold can be done by the home inspector. I let them know that me as a TC, I call the company. Before Lisa had a TC, she would call Utah Radon to schedule that for them. But I would call them, and then sewer scoping. I'd also inform them that, hey, some inspectors don't do sewer scoping, so please look at the list below, which I have. I also, really important here, we want this done as soon as possible, and we want it scheduled as soon as possible, so that not only you have time to get your stuff done before the due diligence deadline, but also to confirm that it works with the sellers, because the sellers cannot be in the home during the home inspection unless agreed upon. But generally, like if the sellers work from home, of course, it gets really hard to leave for 3 hours at a time. But so sometimes the buyers and the home inspector are okay if they're there, but for the review afterward, it's preferred for sure that the seller's not in the home. I send them as a reminder that the home inspection has to be done before 5 p.m. on whatever date it may be. I always throw out, we suggest that you schedule the home inspection at least a week before the deadline, because sometimes the meth test can take up to 7 days to get back if that's one of the things that they want to do. So that's what I always inform them. We make sure we get that done with enough time. Sometimes you can always pay a rush fee to get the meth inspection done, but if we can avoid that extra cost, that's ideal for our clients. And then for Lisa, I throw out suggestions here. Here are some people to contact. Of course, we put the ones that we like the best at the top. These ones are also great too. That's why we put them on the list, but these are just, we put our preferred at the top. People are most likely going to call the top first. And if they're happy with the pricing and everything, they'll go with them. So, and then of course, we suggest some people who do sewer scoping in case one of those people they decided to use doesn't do that. So it's really important deadline. You got to get your buyers to get it done and scheduled. Some agents, like I said, they like to just schedule it with the home inspector and only give them one choice and say, hey, this is my preferred. You can look at somebody else, but here you go, type thing. It all depends on what you want to do, but it is the buyer's decision. So if they go with somebody else, you have to respect that. All right. The next thing I do, once I get all of my information to my client, everything on my calendar, all info, make sure everybody knows what's going on, I send all the information to the lender and escrow officer, or just the escrow officer, of course, depending on if it's the buyer or seller side. So these two are your lifeline. If you want to love your escrow officer and your lender, they need all the information available to help them get your client to a happy and easy close. I just want to throw this in here. Sometimes as agents, we have preferred lenders and preferred escrow officers, and we would love for our clients to use them. But there are some situations in which they decide to use somebody else. And remember, that is their call. They get to choose who they want to use. You can always suggest, but it doesn't mean they're going to use them. So for the email to the title and the lender, what I do is I send pretty much everything over. The contracts and addenda, you want to send those over. The opposite side's escrow officer and lender info, if applicable, of course, because the seller's not going to have a lender. But you want to make sure they have all that information. Sometimes it takes a little bit for that opposite agent to give you that info, but be persistent, not annoying, of course, but make sure you get it to them. It's easier for your side to get everything closed off and everything completed with that information. Also, you want to send the opposite real estate agent info. So if you're the seller, you want the buyer at real estate info to go to them in case any questions are needed. Once received, you want to send the PR commitment to title that comes from the escrow officer. You want to send that over, as well as the plat map that comes with it generally. You want to send that over to the other person. If you have a limited agency agreement, meaning that if you are representing both sides, or if you and the other agent are both from the same office, that also needs to go over to them. And that also needs to go over to your clients as well. Then the MLS printout, you get that from the MLS itself, from the listing. That way, it's just another resource to have all the info they need in case they need to call the HOA, in case they need to contact the agent. Although it already has this info on there, it's still really handy to send to them. It's just nice to have everything in one spot. You want to send the earnest money receipt once received from your office or from your title company, depending on what your clients wanted to do. And then, of course, your client's contact info. Just know it's your choice. Some agents don't like to have the buyer broker or the exclusive right to sell sent to the escrow officer to have access to, or the lender. If this is the case, if you don't want to send that contract over to them for privacy issues, whatever it may be, just make sure that you let them know how much the commission is that was agreed upon in that contract. That's really important for them, especially now since it's not listed on the MLS printout form, for if you're the seller for the buyer or vice versa. You really want to make sure they know what the commission split info is and if it's off of net or gross, and that'll make getting closer to close even easier, just giving all the information you can right up front. Do we have any questions so far? I know it's a lot. I'm talking a lot. All right, no questions? Okay, I'll move on. All right, next. I like to send an email to the listing or the opposite side listing or buyer agent, of course, because we want to stay in great communication to them. Both of you, just remember this, that both of you are working to get to a clean and easy close. Act professionally and represent your client to your fullest. All right, here's the information that needs to go to the opposite agent. Of course, the contracts and addenda. I know you've probably already sent it back and forth, but once again, I like to have all the information in one spot so that it does not get lost. As you know, I know a lot of people, like they have a lot of emails and it just gets lost in the emails, and then you have no idea if it was sent or not. And it may take a while to search for it because you don't know the keywords that were used to find it. So all in one spot is a very, very nice thing to do. You have your MLS printout form. I also like to send it. The home inspection times for approval. If you already have that scheduled, send it. If not, send it in this email chat or through text, whatever it may be. Of course, the plat map, the earnest money receipt needs to go to both people. Lender information. If you're a buyer, you need to send it to the seller. Once again, we're trying to make this easy for everybody. So everybody gets the information, escrow officers, your info that way. The disclosures, if you are, let's see here, if you are the listing agent, you should be emailing all the disclosures to the buyer. Buyer receives it. So the seller PR, the SPCD, the lead-based paint disclosure, any HOA docs and CCRs, any applicable information that they need, because you have to fully disclose everything about the property. And if you are the buyer, you're just waiting for it, right? If you're a buyer agent, that's what you need to request. That's what you need to have from the agent. Seller signed documents. If you are the buyer, you need to send back those signed documents showing, yes, it was received. Yes, it was given. If you're the, excuse me, if you're the listing agent, make sure you're like, hey, I need to get this information. And then if you have a transaction coordinator, We like to exchange information so that we're on there as well. All right. This is just an example email that I would send to an agent. If I was a buyer, for example, if I'm helping represent the buyers, I'd send the rep scene addendum to him and they'll print out. I would request the PR plat map, their transaction information, their transaction coordinator information, any CCRs, SPCDs, seller escrow officer, HOA docs is another one if there is an HOA on the property. And then I let them know if I don't yet have an inspection time, I will let you know when that's going to happen. I will send you the earnest money receipt once received. And then I send them all of this info, buyer's title, buyer's lender, seller title, buyer's agent. I like to have everything in one spot. It makes everything much easier. And then of course, if you're the listing agent, you'd be like, here attached, I have the SPCD, the LBD if needed. I have the original. Sometimes what I like to do, because sometimes seller disclosures are pretty close and the PR can't get out soon enough, is the original PR that was taken out before going under contract. I send that to them just so they can see that there's a clear title, there's no liens, there's no whatever it may be against the seller. That way they have that there now. And then of course I send them the updated one later. And then I request whatever I need, such as we need the earnest money receipt, the buyer's inspection, buyer's lender, and the buyer escrow, if not already received. So once again, everything just in one spot. Now, some of you may be thinking, that's a lot of emails and seems unnecessary. Well, what's great is you can combine the agent email with the title and lender email. That's totally fine. You just need to make sure you're not sending your client's information to the opposite side. That's what's most important there, because they're not supposed to be able to get access to your client, right? You are representing your client. They should not be having any communication with them. They should be going through you. That's what your contract, well, that's what your BVA or ERS was for. You're representing them. You're doing the best you can for them, all that stuff. So just make sure that happens. And if you're like, well, doesn't that require a separate email? No, because you can always respond in that email chain and you can, you can just respond in the email chain just to your title or your lender, and make sure that the agent or the other title, whatever, the seller side, if your buyer is not included in it. So it can all still be within that email chain. It just takes a little bit more coordinating to make sure you're sending it to the right people. All right. So commissions, after I send out all of that information, all of that stuff to get done and all the information out, I then submit commissions. Commissions are here. There's a whole other video on how to do this. You can look that up. It's on our, it should be on our page, our YouTube page soon. We're trying to get that back up. If not, there's also this amazing training called 60-Day Command Training on YouTube. I did this when I officially got licensed as an agent, because before then I was just doing assistant work for one agent. And then I was like, well, I kind of want to do more transaction. So I got licensed and I did this training, and that's how I've learned a lot of my stuff. And it goes through everything about command, all the different details, and especially that commission section. Of course, it has changed. Our commissions section has changed since the video came out. So it is good to make sure you watch a Prep to Get Paid video by Amy. I know that KW South Valley has that available, and we should be making that available to you guys as well to be able to watch. So that's really important there. Make sure you get paid, right? This is your livelihood. This is what you want to do. And what's important is make sure that you just get the commission submitted within 4 days of going under contract. The office just likes to have that done, so that it's not missing. All right. So throughout the transaction, you will most likely have additional addenda. If not, that's great. That makes your life a lot easier. But you most likely will. And then make sure that the executed addendas are all being sent to all the different parties. And make sure you upload it in Command. Command is a lifesaver. This is where we can keep all of our information. Here, there's also, if you're like, well, there is a document that I want to save for this file, but I don't necessarily want it under this section, you can create your own folder, right? And I go, for example, if you have a referral and you have to send 25% of your commissions, this is where I like to keep the W-9 and the agreement on that, just so that I have record of it. What's nice about this is that this doesn't go away if you lose the under contract. You can just set up another version, call it something else. Bam, you have a second version, and look, that doc did not go away. So that's a really handy dandy thing to do, to keep those documents that you don't necessarily need for the contract bit, but you also don't want under this section either. So yeah, just make sure you're keeping good record of it. And make sure you keep track of your deadlines. Once again, I like to do a calendar, but I'm also a paper girl. So I like to have a checklist. Actually, let me pull up the checklist I have for Lisa really quick for you. One second. I'm a checklist girly. So I created this checklist, and I do this for all the agents that I work for. I create an individualized checklist based off of what they need me to do for them. So all of this information is on here. I have a bunch of file folders behind me, as you can see. And this is where I keep all of the information needed. And I go, okay, did I send this? Did I send that? I print it out, of course. Did I receive all these things? This is where I write notes, such as waiting on certain addenda to be signed for whatever it may be, right? I even like to your clients, making sure you're sending everything, but even notes of like, make sure you send them crumble cookie when they go under contract. Make sure you update your listing coverage. Make sure, oh, look, a financial deadline is coming up. That this agent likes me to send them a gift card. To get, congratulations, you made it past the financial appraisal deadline. You're almost to close, that type of thing. And then some agents like to have me schedule. With Lisa, I schedule the closings most of the time, but I always include her in all communication with the client, of course. And then I just make sure it gets scheduled with the title company. And I make a note of I should probably schedule it a week and a half before, depending on the situation. And then I put all that info here. I make sure I inform if we're a listing, I tell the buyer, hey, we're closing on this date at this time. Okay, did I order the closing gift? Do I have that ready to go? All those different things. So make sure you keep track of all your deadlines in a way that helps you. All right, here, I suggest that you attend your home inspection and take notes for them, but remember, you're not the professional and you shouldn't be giving advice on those things. That's for the professional to give, and then you're just there to help take notes and then discuss it afterward and find out what's most important to them. But a home inspection can be really overwhelming for your clients. And we want to make sure that they are feeling comfortable. And if you're there taking notes for them later, they can be like, wait, what was that thing that was really important that they said that I needed to fix? And you can be like, well, look at that. You can request this. So you're there just to help support them and keep note for them. All right. If any repairs are needed, that's when you have your handy dandy resolution of due diligence addendum that's located on the MLS. Typically you would negotiate, some majority of agents like to negotiate with the buyer that's purchasing, or if you're the buyer purchasing home, negotiate with that other agent, make sure everything's great, everybody's good to go, and then you only get one addendum, right? Other agents like to just send the addendum over without without communicating first, and that's fine. But it is nice to talk beforehand, because then you don't have multiple addendums, and it's easier for everybody that way. Less signatures, more efficient, more clean. So make sure that if your buyer needs that you fill it out correctly. And yeah. All right. Be their fiduciary. Always act in your client's best interest, even when it seems to conflict with your own. We all have our own opinions, right? We all, if I was buying this house, I'd do it a different way, or if I was selling this house, I would price it differently. Remember that you can only provide the information for your clients and suggest what would be best, but ultimately they are the ones to make the decision, and you're there for them to help them through this. All right. I like to stay up to date with the lender as well. Sometimes if we're coming up to a financial and appraisal deadline, if I represent the buyer side, about a week before, well, of course you want to have more communication than that, but just make sure that, the lender, we're good to go, nothing's going wrong, because it would really suck if, the day before, you're like, all right, are we good? We have all the documents. And then your lender's like, actually, no, we need all of this stuff. So just make sure that, and then you can't make your financial appraisal deadline, which is not good for your client. So just make sure you're keeping up to date with the lender and making sure everything is good, keeping your client informed. The lender will be communicating with the client as well. But make sure you're in that loop. You don't want to be taken out. All right. So you're closed. Yay. Congratulations. You're done with the transaction. You're getting paid soon. So what's something you can do after closing? These are just some suggestions. I have an after closing checklist at the bottom of the, of the checklist in general. And I make sure that, for instance, social media, of course, I can only do this if I have access to social media accounts. And the only one I have access to is Lisa, because she is my mom. So, but this is something to suggest, for you to do. Make sure you're friends with them on social media. You update everything in Command, their address. You add them to a home anniversary plan if they purchased a home. You obtain their birthday if you can. That way you can send the birthday cards if that's something that you choose to do. Just to remind another contact, right? Because 36 touches in a year, I think, is the goal. So that's one of your touches. And then add tags at this point. Past seller with the year is a good, or past buyer with the year, whatever it may be. Some agents also like to put them on a plan, in a smart plan, where they're reminded within a year, look, hey, like the home anniversary plan. Hey, and a year later, it's their 1 year. Some agents like to get them a little gift or a gift card on their 1 year. It just all depends on you as the agent. But yeah, this is where all that stuff that you want done after closing, it's really good to just have a checklist, whether it's digital or whether it's paper, okay, I need to make sure all of these things are done. Plus, that really helps you stay organized, right? And making sure that you're up to date with your clients, and making sure you're following through and communicating even after a closing. So there's that. Thank you. Are there any questions? I know I got done a little early, but are there any questions from you guys that you want to go over at all? Any clarification, anything like that?
Hello. I have a
Hi.
question for you. Hi.
Yes.
So I have two questions. So do I need a TC for a new construction contract?
I mean, the same things need to be done during that. So it just depends on if you feel like you need a TC in general. Um, that's all I can say on that. Some agents, they love having a TC. TCs tend to be really organized, right? And they have their things set in place to get things done and in an orderly fashion. So that really depends on you. I do know that with new builds, with construction, there isn't too much to do. Sometimes it feels like, but if you're not using a TC for that and you're used to it, you're in charge of sending emails to everybody. You're in charge of making sure that you're in the communication and you're sending addendas everywhere, uploading everything to command, all those different things. So that's a personal preference. Some agents decide to do it all by themselves, and that is totally fine. It just is all up to you.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is, I know that we are supposed to work, that's what I heard, with our TCs from our brokerages. Is that accurate? Or can we, for example, if I want to work with you, can I do that instead of the TC assigned to my brokerage?
Yes, so you can use whatever TC I don't quote me on this. You may need to check with Terry and Lori just to make
Okay.
sure, but from my understanding, all if you want to work for a TC, for example, if you wanted to use somebody at KW South Valley, when you're at KW Utah Realtors, you can apparently you write an addendum of some sort to the buyer broker or the ERS, I believe. I'm just stating that the transaction coordinator you are working for is with, a different office. But I believe I heard that from Mike once, but of course you'll want to make sure. But yeah, it is your choice. If it gets difficult when they're contracted because that's when you need the addendum. If they're not, as in licensed, apologies. If they're not licensed, they can't write up addenda or a rep C for you or anything like that, but they can still send all the information needed and whatnot. So it just depends.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank you for your time. My head is totally spinning. I'm brand new, but I took a lot of
Hi.
pictures.
Oh, good. This is also recorded and it will be on the YouTube playlist as well to always go back to. If you also ever need to communicate with me with questions or anything like that, let me know. But yeah, it is a lot. You have to make sure all the information is there and everybody does it differently. Um, so yeah, this video will be available for you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions?
Yeah, Polly, you're not alone. I'm brand new too. I felt like I was getting thrown in the deep end here, but it's a lot of great information. Thank you. This is Adam. Um, it looks like a lot of those checklists and the order that you have, is that something you've created or is that
Yes.
okay? So I can just go back and watch this and then be able to recreate something similar tailored to my,
Yes.
right? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, you can look over it. I can also send you an example if you want me to. Um, yeah, it's just all your own thing, all your own preference, how you like to track things. Some people are completely digital, some people are completely paper, some people do both like me. So it's all you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your help.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
It's me again. Yes, I have another question.
Yeah, what's up?
The transaction fee, the transaction coordinator fee, it's applied at closing. Is that correct? Like we charge
Yes.
it to the buyer?
Well, that depends on you. So if you are going to, if you do have a TC and you are going to have the buyer pay for it, that is the additional fee that's listed. You know, when you're filling out the buyer broker or the ERS, there's like the money amount and the percentage amount done in that section. Do you remember that section? Or should I pull that up really
Yeah,
quick?
I remember it. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, so that section of it, that dollar amount is where people put their fee for their TC. So it all gets applied at closing. The buyer or seller will end up paying that amount agreed upon. Other agents are like, hey, I don't want my buyer to pay for it. It's only $300 to $400 for this TC fee. It'll just come out of my commission. But of course, that's your choice. Some agents have been doing this for years, and some have the buyer pay for it directly, or it's just through the commissions. So it really all depends on you. But that's where you would put it if you are wanting your buyer to pay for that fee for you.
So if I decide to pay for it, do I just cross off that section or put zeros?
Just leave it blank. You can put blank, you can put NA.
Okay,
Either one. Mhm.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so I know this may have been overwhelming, right? We're new agents here, but you're not alone. You guys have a great team to work with the PC coaching program. Terry and Lori are amazing, and all the other agents that are on it as well. So just use your resources. I'll put my contact info in the chat really quick if you would like to contact me. And sorry, typing for a while apparently. All right, there you go. Contact me if you have any questions. I am taking on new agents if that's something that you're interested in. Of course, there's no pressure to use a TC. Not all agents use a TC, but a TC is a good start to help you throughout your transaction. So yeah, thank you so much. If there are no other questions, we'll end, and then I'm gonna turn off the video, but we do have evening huddle at 6:30. So if you're going to join that, log back on at 6:30. Okay, let's not forget about that. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. You're all amazing. Have a wonderful Thursday and a wonderful weekend. And hopefully we'll see you at evening huddle, and if not, morning huddle tomorrow.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Bye.